everybody, welcome to J Palace Yamingong. My name is Eunice, but you can call me Yaya. So today we're going to be critiquing Disney's new live-action Mulan, which was released September 24th. So this video will mostly be a comparison between cultural history and traditions in relation to the movie. In the future, I will be releasing another video that goes more into depth about the actual figure Mulan. So let's get started. So warning, spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen the movie and you don't wish to be spoiled, click away now, and I recommend you coming back after you've seen the movie. If you don't mind, proceed with caution. Just putting it out now. So there's been a lot of mixed opinions regarding this film. Even before the trailer came out, there has been rumors of a Caucasian love interest and the confirmed rumors of like the lack of Mushu, removing the songs, and so not a lot of people are happy with the direction that this film was going, and it seemed like it got even worse when the trailer dropped, and all of these critiques continued up until its release. So let's talk about everything that went wrong this movie. The first thing that stood out to me that I was appalled at was the fixation on chi. In the movie, you see the father introducing Mulan and talking about how like, oh, she has so much chi, but how can you tell a daughter that only boys can wield chi? Sorry to break it to you guys, but everyone has chi. Chi is just your life force, your life energy. It runs through your body. It's what makes you you. There isn't something super power-like about chi. Yes, in Taoism, you could cultivate your chi, and this is called qigong, and historically a lot of Taoists and a lot of figures actually try to cultivate their chi and use qigong and like make elixirs and pills and that kind of stuff. But chi is not magic. Chi doesn't let you climb up walls or whatever, and the idea that only boys can have chi? What is this? Everyone has chi. You have chi, I have chi. Yeah, sometimes your chi can probably be blocked. It could be like disrupted depending on like, you know, your mentality, your environment, but chi is always there. So I understand that a lot of Western or a lot of Hollywood films always make chi seem like use the force, but no, it's not. It really isn't. And that's what really bothered me about this movie. And especially there was a scene where they come in and they're talking about how Bori Khan, the antagonist, has this witch fighting by his side and how her chi is tremendous. And they're like, oh, we don't use black magic in this kingdom. I don't know. I'm just super ranty about this, but that's how it is. That's chi is not magic. Everyone has chi. This movie just kind of like, when I first saw, especially right off the bat, they're talking about how Mulan's chi is so strong and everything. And I'm just like, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this worked. And what I feel was that they tried to make chi into more like Elsa. So Mulan basically became a Chinese Elsa. You know, conceal, don't feel, don't let it show. That's exactly how they decide to introduce and educate us on chi in this movie, and it really isn't that at all. So early on in the film, we have tiny little Mulan doing her little chi kung fu, and everyone's like, they're gonna call her a witch, which again, chi isn't magic, and we don't have witches. But we already have the early symbolism and motif of the phoenix being explained to her. Her father is telling her, oh, the phoenix will be engulfed by flames and be reborn again. But it seems like they're getting their European and their Asian phoenix mythologies mixed up. Yes, they both have similar looks and aspects, and they both have fires associated with them. But the problem is, Chinese phoenixes actually aren't known to burst into flames, die, and be reborn again. Phoenixes are not that kind of symbol in Chinese mythology, and it seems like they definitely mixed that up, or they didn't look into it at all. So in modern interpretation, which is post-Yuan dynasty, we have the dragon and the phoenix, and the dragon is usually supposed to represent the male, while the phoenix is the female. The dragon is the emperor, the phoenix is the empress. And we still see this depiction and symbolism to this day, especially with Chinese weddings, and you can actually still find these kind of motifs in Chinese dim sum restaurants. But the phoenix is usually depicted as a female. I think that's probably what they were trying to portray in this movie, that the phoenix is supposed to be Mulan. And they're stemming off the European mythology that she's supposed to die engulfed in flames only to be reborn stronger, which I guess would be fine if it weren't a Chinese movie. So we have this Chinese idiom, 浴火凤凰, and what it means is that when you have been pushed until the very end of your limit, you're at the very bottom, there's no lower you can go, but through hard work and perseverance, you're able to emerge again even stronger. So I'm not actually exactly sure what the symbolism is supposed to entail in the film. Is it supposed to represent the rebirth? Is it supposed to represent her womanhood? Which again, is a very modern concept. The term 凤凰 does translate directly to phoenix. And to this day, when we say a phoenix, we usually call it a 凤凰. Before the Yuan dynasty, a feng is supposed to represent the male phoenix, while the huang is the female phoenix. And I guess if they did research, I guess it's supposed to say that Mulan is the phoenix. She has a equal parts man and equal parts woman. It's supposed to be like, you know, her anima and her animus. But this interpretation might be giving them too much credit because, again, from what we saw throughout the movie, it doesn't seem like they researched it that much, and it just might just be a happy coincidence that this was the symbolism. So this film seems to definitely emphasize the importance of the phoenix and the symbolisms of it throughout the whole movie. We see the phoenix as a guardian statue outside the temple. Chinese temples, we will always have guardian beasts. Usually it's the qilin or piqiu or bixie, because these are all guardian beasts. These beasts are supposed to keep us safe. The phoenix isn't exactly a guardian beast. So to have a phoenix guarding a temple, again, is a huge cultural clash. It seems like for this movie, they decided to completely replace the great stone dragon and instead use the phoenix. But the thing is, if they wanted a more cultural guardianship type of beast, a dragon definitely would have been more suitable. So let's talk about the costume. The costume was definitely my biggest gripe when I saw the trailer, and I decided to, why not, give the movie a chance, watch it, then go from there. The story, The Ballad of Mulan, takes place during the Northern Dynasty, which is post-Han, pre-Tang. So when you have Han Dynasty, then you have the Three Kingdoms, then you have Wei, Jing, North and South Dynasties, and then you have Sui Dynasty, and then you have the Tang Dynasty. Mulan most likely took place during the Northern Dynasty, and with that, her clothes would have been a lot different. It wouldn't have been extravagant, it would have definitely been more simple. And so when I saw the trailer, I was like, why is everything so Tang Dynasty? And when I watched the interview with the designer, Bina Daigler, she actually told Variety that the Tang Dynasty was definitely her inspiration, and the research actually entailed trips to European museums with Chinese collections and a 3-week trip to China. Okay. If you're going to research our culture, if you're going to research Chinese garments, Chinese history, why are you going to Europe? Why are you going to another country when you can just go directly to China? China's collection and current inventory of historical garments, historical artifacts is amazing. The preservation's amazing. She should have just directly went to China. Why did she go to Europe? And that was my biggest annoyance with this movie. So let's move on. I understand why they chose the Tang Dynasty. The Tang Dynasty was when our culture was at its richest. This is basically the Cosmopolitan era. It was what I would describe as the golden age of Chinese history. Trade was vast. You had people coming in from different cultures adding to the Tang Empire. You also have like an abundance of wealth. It was peaceful for the most part. There wasn't much conflict. And what was interesting about the Tang Dynasty is that this is also the dynasty that women were more equal compared to men. And I'll get into this later on about the connotation of changing the history, but the Tang Dynasty was an amazing dynasty. And I get it, like the clothes during the Tang Dynasty were extravagant. It was detailed, the colors, the textiles, everything. So I understand wanting to choose the Tang Dynasty. But even with choosing the Tang Dynasty, the fashion was all over the place. So let's start with the matchmaker dress. It is the dress that you see in the trailer. It's the dress that she wears during the matchmaking scene, as well as the scene where her father gets drafted into the army. What she's wearing is this tight purple robe with a stand-up collar and exposes, you know, her collarbone. Traditionally, this dress is called a chuju. So a chuju is basically a robe that actually wraps around the body, and you actually see this in the scene. She twirls into this dress as they're wrapping it around her in order to fasten it to her waist. If they kept Mulan during the Wei Jing Northern Southern Dynasty, this would be the dress that she would wear. Unfortunately, when you change it to the Tang Dynasty were more known to wear ruchun or other types of robes. Chuju usually is during, you know, the Qing Dynasty, the Han Dynasty. And what I had a problem with was how tight it was. It was a very modernized cut. A chuju actually usually will be more loose fitting. It would be, you know, bulky, because a chuju is a type of shangyi, and shangyi translates to basically a deep robe. And these were usually worn during conservative dynasties. It was supposed to wrap everything up. So to have her wearing a chuju with an exposed, like, collarbone and a stand-up collar, that's not how a chuju is supposed to be worn. A chuju is supposed to be worn completely wrapped around. You basically don't see anything from the neck down because it's a conservative robe. So to have a Tang Dynasty inspiration, and then you take an older garment and you modernize it to fit the Tang Dynasty, it doesn't work. This is not something that you can just change, and that's what I had an issue with, especially when, okay, fine, if you want to change the dynasty, fine, at least keep it consistent. And this wasn't very consistent at all. And instead, what she should be wearing is a ruchun. If you look at her mother, her sister, all the females of the villagers, they're actually wearing ruchun. And a ruchun consists of a skirt that you tie around your body, but under that skirt you have another garment, and usually you will have, like, you know, a banbi, which is like a little vest-like coat, and you can usually wear it over the ruchun, or you can tuck it underneath the skirt, and that's what she should be wearing. Everyone else is basically wearing historically accurate garments. I understand that they chose to put her in a chuju in order to contrast her, like make her different than what everyone else, but I feel like they could have done that so differently. They could have made it like she has a signature color, which you see is red in later on, but everyone wears red. Chinese, we love red envelopes. But they could have done it differently. They could have had her having a more stylized ruchun, a style that, you know, was more detailed, had motif. What research did they do? Why did it look like they just grabbed whatever looked good throughout our 6,000 years and added together just so it looks Chinese? And that's what really, really bothers me, was that there was no cohesiveness with all of the costumes and the timeline. And that's, again, especially when they said that, you know, oh my god, they wanted to make it as accurate as possible. It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it at all. It really just seems like they just took whatever garment they thought they looked good and just mix it into this movie, and they thought that no one would notice. Oh, sorry, yeah, noticed. So as a designer that specializes in historical Chinese garments and costumes, let's just move on because I would be here ranting for over an hour if you give me the time. So let's get this going. Next, let's talk about the makeup. You guys watched the trailer, right? You guys watched the movie. If you didn't watch the movie, yeah, at least watch the trailer, right? You saw during the matchmaking scene, like how they put everything on. And today I actually did my makeup, very much inspired by the movie. But why did her makeup look so awful? You see on her face, you have like, you know, the white highlight with the yellow and like a motif, as well as her blush and everything. Yeah, traditionally, all of those are Tang Dynasty makeups. And I don't want to say that Tang Dynasty makeup looks great, but what happened was that it seems like they were just trying to make it as dramatic as possible. And it looks so bad. I'm sorry, when I saw it, I was blown away with how bad it looked. I was speechless and not in a good way. So let's break it down. First, you see how she has a yellow forehead. So that is called the Huang. So Huang translates to yellow forehead, which is what it is. We do see Huang from around the Han Dynasty sometimes, but Tang Dynasty, Song Dynasty on. And what the Huang is, it's inspired by the golden Buddha statues that were popular, especially in the Tang Dynasty with the rise of Buddhism. A lot of women started painting their foreheads yellow to emulate these Buddha statues. What you see Mulan wear is a huadian. A huadian usually is a little symbol in the middle of the forehead, and this was a symbol of beauty. And it's probably the most common marking of like beauty mark that you'll see. Other beauty marks also include the xiehong, also the yedian. These are all beauty marks. So the Tang Dynasty had a lot of this. And in the movie, you can actually see other characters wearing these beauty marks, such as the matchmaker. She had the xiehong as well as the yedian. And yes, her face technically does use traditional makeup applications, but it just didn't look cohesive at all. And what happened was that they decided to keep modern eyebrows as well as modern lips. So the Tang Dynasty was known for crazy eyebrows. You have eyebrows that are just like, you know, circles or like angry or sad or different lines. It was all over the place, especially the Tang Dynasty was hundreds of years. So throughout, you know, every generation, there was different fashion trends, which we still have to this day. But that's the thing, they decided to keep her eyebrows as modern as possible and her lips. The Tang Dynasty didn't fill in their lips. They had different trends, and one of the most well-known trends is called 樱桃嘴, which means cherry lips. But basically, they wanted to make their mouths as small as possible. They would fill in only the middle and then leave this like bare. And what it is like they have so many different trends. They want to look like flower petals or different like things, as long as it looks small and delicate. But in the Mulan movie, they kept her full lips. So by modern perspective, Tang Dynasty makeup doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing. It's not very flattering compared to the makeup that we wear now. But when you see women depicted in art, you notice that even though they're wearing a lot of rouge, it's still well blended. It's supposed to look as natural as you can during those times. So when you have Mulan wearing such dramatic makeup like that, it becomes jarring. Everything doesn't look like it's supposed to go together. And that's the thing again. It seems like the makeup was just done for dramatics only. So let's talk about the societal and political connotations of changing Mulan from the Northern Dynasty to the Tang Dynasty. Newsflash, it doesn't work. During the time of the Wei, Jing, Northern Southern dynasties, there is constant war. It was messy. This is post Three Kingdoms. Everyone's fighting each other, which is why people are getting drafted. which is why her father has to go to war, which is why Mulan takes her father's place, because they have to go to war. They have to fight. But the Tang Dynasty didn't. As I said before, the Tang Dynasty is a cosmopolitan era. It is the golden age. It was basically peaceful. Like, yeah, there were still some conflicts with the first couple emperors, but all in all, there wasn't mass need for fighting. There wasn't a mass need for war. So when you change Mulan into the Tang Dynasty, it doesn't work. As I said before, the Tang Dynasty, women were doing okay. First female emperor, women are able to hold power, such as positions of advisors. Women were able to divorce. Women were able to own land. Women were able to remarry, which hasn't been a thing before, but they were allowed to in the Tang Dynasty. And when you have a story where a character being a woman is the source of conflict, it wouldn't have been an issue in the Tang Dynasty because Tang Dynasty didn't have that issue. So again, you have to look at the social connotations because not all dynasties are the same, and that's unfortunately, it seems like that they thought it was, but each different dynasty has its own political and societal climates. And when you take a story from one timeline and move it to another, you have to think about that. And unfortunately, they didn't. Everything they did was for aesthetic. And that doesn't always work. So you can argue that, oh, it's not the Tang Dynasty. It's this fantasy world where all the dynasties are merged together in one hot pot of Chinese history, even though Mulan is a cultural and historical and folklore hero. But that's not the case. When they pan over the imperial city, which they don't name, but you can tell that it is Chang'an. How can you tell it's Chang'an? Because when they pan over and you go to the right side of the screen, you see the Great Goose Pagoda. That is definitely a sign that it is Chang'an, and Chang'an was the capital of the Tang Dynasty. So if you want a great commentary about the movie through a cultural and traditional lens, there's this amazing Twitter account that basically comments about every scene by scene by scene, and I will link that in the bottom description so you guys can check it out. It is amazing, it is so funny, and everything they say I totally agree with. I've been talking about how bad the movie is, all the inaccuracy, the negative points. Okay, fine, let's talk about what I did like about the movie. While the list is kind of short, just heads up. Also love the cinematography. Everything was filmed beautifully. Yeah, maybe some of the CGI wasn't exactly needed, but it was so pretty to look at. The use of color, the use of imagery, it was gorgeous. Oh my god, like, you know, the fighting scene. I just think everything was just so beautiful to look at. But unfortunately, as I said, the list is short. Those are the only things I liked about this film. Yeah, it's pretty. It's a Disney movie. Disney put a lot of money into that. It's meant to look pretty. But when you give me this, when you give me this film, it's like giving me a cup of water that has food coloring in it. It's pretty to look at, but overall it has no flavor. This film was so flavorless. The pacing was awkward. There was no characterization that made me care about these characters, but this movie didn't make me care. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about what was gonna happen. And that's the problem. You invested so much money on imagery, but you didn't give me sustenance. There was no body. There was nothing that made me want to care about these characters. Other than the cultural points that I talked about in the beginning, there are just other aspects of the film that irked me. The scene where she's like, you know, finally discovering, okay, she can't hide herself anymore. She has to be true to herself. She has to be whatever. So what does she do? She starts taking off her armor. She takes out her hair and rides into battle. Okay, even if chi is like this magical thing, chi doesn't make you sword-proof. People can still stab you, okay? I get it's symbolism. It's symbolism that, you know, she's shedding off like, you know, the like shells. She's shedding off like, you know, societal norms. But you can still get stabbed. So we have the witch sacrificing her life for Mulan. A woman she's had interaction with 3 times in the film. The first of which, she tried to kill her in battle. How did it go from that to, oh my god, I'm gonna sacrifice myself so you don't get shot with an arrow? Why would she die for her? I don't get it. This film just wasn't good. And that's unfortunate because while, yeah, the animated film wasn't really accurate either, but it was good. Even without nostalgia goggles, like the animated film is able to be watched throughout generations. This film can't. And it makes me sad because the reason why they took out Mushu, all the singing, is because they wanted to make it more historically accurate, as traditionally accurate. Unfortunately, this movie is as traditional as fortune cookies. So, and that's what makes me angry. If you're gonna take out what made the animated film so special to make it more accurate, and you give me this? I'm sorry, what kind of research did you do? I'm looking at, like, you know, the designer, the producer, the director, none of which are Asian. They're not Chinese. And with all the money that Disney has, why couldn't they hire like a Chinese anthropologist, even just be on set and be like, hey, this isn't right. This isn't how their culture is. So when you give me an excuse that you took out all the backbone of a good animated film to make it more accurate, and you give me something that is wholly inaccurate, and that's what makes me so angry. It seemed like the research that they done for this movie was basically, what do Chinese people like? Oh, Chinese people like period dramas. Okay, let's go watch some period dramas and just put whatever in. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. They wanted a movie that they can break into the Chinese market, which is why they did what they did, but unfortunately it flopped. Chinese people didn't like it. They didn't respect us, but they still wanted our money. As I said, they gave us a cup of water with food coloring. It's pretty, but no flavor. There are so many other great adaptations of Mulan's story. Mulan, Rise of a Warrior, starring Zhou Wei, is one of my favorite Mulan films. It is actually really historically accurate. It is gritty, it is sad, it's very real. And if you really want a remake of the animated films, there's actually this really cute troupe called Little Actors and Actresses, and they actually have videos of children remaking a lot of traditional Chinese stories or films or dramas. And one of them was Mulan. They actually kept all the songs in. It's super cute, and I love that version as well. So definitely check those out if you want to actually find a good version of Mulan. So thank you for joining me today as I critique the live action Mulan. I would very much appreciate it if you can like and subscribe. And yeah, I will see you next time. 下次见啦，拜拜。